Hey, I'm Adam Cook. Welcome to the Bite Britain podcast, a show dedicated to interviewing the most successful restaurant owners in the UK, learning about what goes into their incredible menus, but more importantly, what it takes to run the successful restaurant in this day and age. The burger joint has been keeping Bristol's hunger for burgers alive for a whopping 10 years. Started in 2009 by Dan Berkhradnia, the brand has now 2 Bristol locations serving standard, veggie, vegan and even gluten-free options. With its signature build-your-own approach and attention to quality ingredients, as well as an array of positive press, the burger joint has carved out a solid reputation as the place to be for burgers in Bristol. Today, I have Dan on the show with me. So Dan, welcome.
Thank you very much.
That was just a very brief intro, but perhaps you could just start by just telling us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll go on to talk a bit more about the burger joint.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved to Bristol in 2003. I actually originally moved to study at University of Bristol, studied politics and graduated in 2007. I was at a bit of a crossroads and I didn't really have a clear idea about what I wanted to sort of venture into post-university. But I had absolutely fallen in love with Bristol and was quite sure that I wanted to remain there. I had also worked as a chef from a young age. I started at 16 in a kitchen, started washing up, had made my way up and actually worked as a head chef somewhere in Oxford where I was previously from, and also worked as a chef during university to fund my drinking habit, really.
Yeah, we've all got to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'd always had an interest in running businesses. When I was younger, I'd run a kind of football coaching business for children, and then whilst at university, I actually ran my own sort of drum and bass night. So I'd kind of book clubs and book DJs and sell tickets.
That's definitely a conversation we can have about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That definitely sparked my interest, so we can talk more about that another time for sure.
So I guess I'd always shown an interest in running a business. I'd worked in restaurants for a while. I'd done well working in restaurants. I quite enjoyed it. So it was something I thought I might try at some point, but kind of the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, actually maybe the time to do it would be when I was younger, when I maybe didn't have quite as much to lose in terms of I wasn't trying to support a family, etc. And yeah, I kind of obviously had some relevant experience. So I really started to develop the idea seriously at the sort of beginning of 2008, and at first it was just to open a restaurant, and then I kind of moved towards a burger restaurant, and then I kind of developed the concept of the burger joint, and we finally opened in July 2009. My plan was to open much earlier, but for one reason or another there were delays. But actually, looking back, those delays might have been good because it allowed me to sort of meticulously plan the whole concept and ensure that I had experience in kind of every area. So yeah.
Because I mean, I suppose back then, I mean, you know, there's lots of different these kind of like, you know, hipstery burgery joint places around now, but back then there wasn't really that much, was there, in terms of, you know, more sort of artisan style burger places and things like that. So I mean, I guess you were kind of pioneering that, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in Bristol, it was kind of a brand new concept, and obviously going forward, that meant we were ahead of the game. It certainly at first was potentially a bit of a challenge to persuade people why, you know, you might pay a few pounds more for a burger than people were used to, because although I think it's fair to say, you know, the Byrons and the GBKs and stuff are well established in London, and the more sort of, as you say, artisan places were developing in London. In Bristol, you know, you thought of a burger, you thought of McDonald's, or you thought of Burger King. So it was kind of a new concept, and it did present challenges, but yeah, you know, considering what was then going to develop in the next sort of 5 or 10 years, it's obviously meant we were very well placed when this kind of burger explosion came to Bristol, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, what kind of gave you the idea of burgers? Was it something that you'd had experience with in the past? Was it just sort of a market that you thought was going to be emerging? I mean, what sort of led you in that direction?
Well, firstly, I love burgers. They've always, they've always,
That's a
yeah,
great start. You're your own best customer.
yeah, no, exactly. I think it's probably always good to open a business that you have a passion for and feel like if you were a customer you would frequent. So yeah, I love burgers. So after university, I moved back to Oxford very briefly, back home with my parents, and was working as a chef, much to my parents' absolute hostility, because they're like, "Why have we supported you through university? You come back and you're working as a chef." But this place I was working at, they did a range of like really good quality burgers, and
Right.
it was quite a I wouldn't say a posh restaurant, but it was like a good quality bistro in the right in the sort of quite expensive area of Oxford, and they were serving a lot of these burgers. It was definitely the most popular dish on the menu. And when I decided I was going to open the restaurant, the first thing I did is I asked if I could start working as front of house, because I'd worked as a chef for all these years, but I didn't really have any experience working as a waiter or barman or anything else. So they were slightly begrudging at first, because I was a second chef, and I was quite important to them. But I kind of gave them the ultimatum. It's like, well, you either let me do this or I move somewhere else and do this, because I'm no longer going to chef. So they let me do it. And what became apparent very quickly was the demographic of these people having burgers. It wasn't just 20-year-old students. It was people my parents' age, having a burger each with a bottle of wine, and it made me think that actually, if you do burgers well, you've got an amazingly captive audience, and then it got me thinking, wow, there's nowhere that does burgers like these in Bristol, and there is probably a gap in the market. And then I did go and sort of have a look at what's going on in London, and you could see there was beginning to be an explosion of these burger places. So it kind of developed from there. So I think I decided I wanted to open a restaurant, as I said, at the beginning of 2008, and I think by the summer of 2008 I was quite sure that it was going to be a burger place, and then the sort of specific concept of the burger joint just developed from there. So
Yeah, no, I mean it's an awesome concept, because what strikes me is that your menus, it's not, you haven't really got a menu per se. It's kind of like build your own kind of style. Being from having a catering company some time ago, I kind of understand the concept of like having menus and things like that. And I look at that and I think, oh my god, that must be just like a nightmare to try and manage it. So I'm really interested to know, because I think it's such a great concept. But I think I'm really interested to understand sort of how you manage that kind of concept behind the scenes. Is that something that you started with? Did you always kind of build?
Well, we've always had the concept of a build your own burger place.
Right.
My reasoning behind it was that so often I go to a restaurant and they have a few burgers, and it's like, for example, I don't like barbecue sauce, and something would come with barbecue sauce or this or that, and it just I just thought the idea, well, wouldn't it be great if you could choose exactly how you want it? But it is incredible how the menu has developed over the years. As you mentioned, we just celebrated our 10th birthday, and we did on social media, we were kind of posting things from the past, and one was our original menu from 2009, and it was much smaller. I mean, I think it was probably less than half the size. So it did still create some logistical problems, because in a normal restaurant you've got 10 dishes on the menu. The chefs pretty much memorize it, and then it's just putting them together. But with the fact that every single burger is different at the burger joint, it does mean there's a lot of mistakes you can make, a lot of things you can do wrong. It means you need a lot of ingredients, because I think now we have sort of 11 patties, 30 odd toppings, 30 odd sauces. So it does lead to some logistical challenges, but we over time we've learned to master them. Certainly for new chefs that come, they often just get sort of blown away by how the tickets work and stuff, because if you think about it, every burger, you've got a specific type of bun they can choose, specific type of patty, loads of different toppings, loads of different sauces, different sides. So there is a lot of information to have to absorb. But it's one of those things. Obviously, over the years we've sort of honed in our practices and procedures, and so it does take a while sometimes, but once they get bedded in, they
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the prime, it's a prime example of going boldly to places where a lot of businesses may not, and I think that's a really important lesson for people that are listening to learn. Going with the status quo isn't always the right thing to do, and actually, if you can find a way to break into some and reach people, someone's need that isn't being served, in the sense of like build your own burger. Like, yeah, you can go to a burger place and you can say, can you remove that? And sometimes they're all right with it, and then sometimes you feel a bit awkward asking a lot of the time. So you've completely differentiated yourself from the market effectively, and you've almost created your own private marketplace of build your own burger. If someone wants to build their own burger, they're coming to you, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think in some ways that has been one of the key recipes for our longevity. Because of the fact that there weren't many of these top quality burger places in Bristol at the time, meant we would have probably established ourselves, but now Bristol is awash with many very high quality burger restaurants, and I think obviously we are the longest standing, and we have a great customer base, but I think people can never really get bored, because there's always a different combination or something else to try. So yeah, people love it as well. I think if a family go out for a burger and stuff, everyone gets their tick pads and they're having a little family conference about what everyone's getting and stuff like that. And I think it just allows for for example, we've got a burger salad option now, where instead of having a patty and a bun, you can have it in a nice salad. And so it might mean that mum can have a nice chicken salad with guacamole and peppers, whereas the kids can have a big cheesy bacon burger and stuff like that. So it does sort of cater for everyone's needs, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, where did the inspiration to do this kind of menu actually come from? Is it just something, because is it again going back to what you would want to see as a customer yourself?
Yes, within reason. There was, as I said, I loved burgers as a kid, and there was a place in Oxford where I grew up, which was called Peppers, which is still going. It's a burger place that's been going for about 40 or 50 years, and they had a very limited menu in terms of, there was a beef burger and a veggie burger, and you could add cheese to it. But they had about 12 or 14 sauces you could add to your burger. So, everyone chose the sauces and stuff like that.
Right.
So, I think that's something that kind of, made me think, because, everyone will always have their different type of sauce and stuff like that. But obviously I've taken it to a next level in terms of, the choice on offer. But yeah, I think that that was something that gave me the idea, certainly. But obviously, as I said, we've kind of taken it to a next level.
Yeah, and I mean, it's everyone has their own idea of what a good burger is. Some people, they like to have goat's cheese. Sometimes people like to have no cheese, or bacon, or onion rings, or whatever it might be. So I think it's a really, really great way of separating yourself from the burger market. I really think it's a very, very impressive concept, and I think the fact that you nailed it behind the scenes, I think is even more impressive to me. But I'm very interested also around sort of the current marketplace and how things sort of play out with things like activity online, so social media, all that kind of stuff. You came onto our radar through your great online reputation, so I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about kind of how you maintain that reputation, what the sort of digital marketplace actually means to you guys as a business, and kind of how you, I guess, navigate it, really.
Yeah, well, in many ways, it is a bit of a minefield, and it's constantly evolving as well. So, it's something that you can never sort of stand still with, and you've got to be constantly looking at what else is happening, what mediums of social media and other mechanisms are working. So I think the first way we really benefited from really positive online presence was through TripAdvisor. It was remarkable. After about a year and a half, 2 years, our TripAdvisor ratings were going very well. There was actually one point, I think about 2.5 years after we opened, where we were actually ranked the #1 restaurant in Bristol. Wow. which was quite an accolade. And but again, I think these days TripAdvisor has become much less important than it was. I think, you know, sometimes people might take some of the things they see on TripAdvisor with a pinch of salt, and also there are other, you know, I think Google reviews are very important now, but also, you know, it's your own personal social media pages, you know, your Instagram pages and stuff like that. And, you know, for us, because, you know, I think if you've opened a restaurant in the last few years, you kind of know from the beginning that, you know, it's very important to have these platforms and to ensure that they're representing your food and your business in the right way. But for us as a business, you know, Instagram wasn't even around when we started, and, you know, we had a Facebook page, but, you know, it wasn't used very much and stuff like that. So it is something, you know, we've you know, there was a time, I'd say, you know, the probably around 2015, where it was kind of like, wow, you know, the new businesses that come in the block have really upped their game in terms of their presence on these sites, and it's something that we felt we were almost catching up with. So right. It was a lesson, and it is a lesson to anyone, you know, who does look to open a business, is that you can never stand still. You know, there's always innovations. There's always people who are pushing the bar forward, and it's very important that you are always looking to improve in every area. And I mean, obviously we have had very good reviews, you know, and we continue to. I think, you know, you can do as much yourself, but, you know, you're obviously reliant on getting these good reviews and good comments from customers. And I think the most important thing with that is just the consistency of your restaurant. You know, it's not about, you know, being good for 6 months or a year. You know, it's constantly providing that high level food, the great service, and just ensuring that, you know, you never let yourself down. Because unfortunately, you know, it can be quite cruel, the online reviews, because, you know, certainly once or twice we've started, you know, a review has started with, I've been to this place 10 times and always had a brilliant meal, but on this one occasion, you know, this happened. And, you know, obviously you have to accept that. If you know, if one time you don't achieve the levels that people are used to, they might write a negative review. But it can be quite frustrating, because you're like, well, I haven't seen you review any of the 10 times you've come before.
Yeah, of course.
Really had a great time, but the
yeah.
one time you haven't had a good time. So it can be tough, but you know, that's the world we live in. Unfortunately, you know, you're open to scathing reviews, but, you know, thankfully over the years we haven't had too many.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, you know, it's just all about reputation, isn't it? And, you know, I think the world is just that much more transparent in this day and age. And I think, you know, if you want to survive, you know, you can't just get away with happening to be in a good spot and have a crappy restaurant. You really have got to do the service, because people are going to check you out online. They might not go to TripAdvisor, but if they don't, they're going to go to Instagram. They're going to see the pictures of your food at least and see what it looks like and see what people are sharing. And, you know, it is a minefield, but I guess when it comes down to the core fact of the matter of it, it's really just about, like you say, consistency with the service, consistency with the food, and just staying true to, you know, your vision and your promise to your customers effectively, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. It's just even more important now because it's even more on show than it's ever been.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you are right. You can't get away with being second rate anymore. And if your standards do drop, you know, people will pick up on it very, very quickly. So, you know, social media and all these platforms can be incredibly helpful for business, especially for new business. I think it can, you know, as I said, like first 18 months when we opened, it was tough. It was a tough economic environment then anyway, but it took a while. But actually then when we did start getting these great reviews on TripAdvisor, and then kind of around 2011, bloggers and influencers started, you know, becoming more of a thing in Bristol, certainly. And you know, we got some positive reviews that way. And suddenly it really helped to increase our business and trade by a substantial amount. So it, you know, absolutely these tools can be very helpful for you, especially as a new business. But you know, as I said, you've got to make sure that you are on the top of your game the whole time. And then when trade does increase, it's great, but at the same time, it creates a lot more problems. You know, so after 3 years of running the business, we actually closed the restaurant we opened on, which was a 22-seat restaurant on a sort of off street in Bristol, and we moved onto a main road, White Ladies Road, which had double the capacity, outside seating, etc., and actually it literally doubled the business overnight, which was brilliant. You know, for me, I was realizing my dream. You know, suddenly I had a business that was obviously becoming very successful. But at the same time, it was incredibly stressful because, with the increased trade became all these increased challenges, and suddenly for me, like when I was in this small restaurant, I could pretty much be in charge of the kitchen and the front of house at the same time, and everything was under my control.
Right.
But suddenly, I remember after 3 weeks of being this new restaurant, it was a Saturday night, it was full inside and outside, and we were struggling a bit. There was an hour wait on food, etc. And I just remember that realization that, wow, I no longer have full control over my business, which was kind of scary in some ways. But over time we learned to adapt to that increased trade, which was obviously important.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing about when you're leveling up like that. It brings on whole new challenges. And one of the things that comes up a lot is making sure you're hiring the right people, and making sure that you've got people that you can trust. But I think more so than that, being prepared to actually outsource decisions to other people and that kind of thing. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of the restaurant owners I spoke to that have gone from small restaurant to bigger things have said that's a very clear thing. So I mean, is staffing something that is sort of close to your heart? I mean, have you got sort of a certain hiring process, certain things that you look for, certain traits that you look for in staff now you're kind of trying to grow this business? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, staffing is, without a doubt the biggest challenge in the business. And, I'm quite sure, speaking to local restaurant owners around, it's the same for everyone, because you are only as good as the staff you employ, and, they are representative of your business. And, if you only need a couple of bad members of staff and it can have an incredibly negative effect on your business. So it is a challenge, and it's an ongoing challenge. And you are right. You have to trust your staff, and you have to allow them to make decisions, but you have to ensure they are the right people that are making these decisions. Otherwise, you can be in all sorts of trouble. I'm very lucky in the sense that I have one specific member of staff called Emma, who's literally joined the company 2 weeks after I opened in 2009. Who still works for me. She started off as a chef and then a head chef, and then she went over to open the second restaurant we opened in Bedminster, and then over time she actually became the operations manager in charge of the whole business. And so I'm incredibly lucky to have her. She is such a brilliant member of staff. She cares about the business as much as I do. She has always listened and looked at how I want the business run and tried to emulate that, instead of, you can employ some people who kind of feel they know best and make decisions you wouldn't necessarily be happy with. So it's brilliant to have her. But again, she can't run two or when we had 3 restaurants on her own. So then we need restaurant managers in each restaurant, head chefs, etc. So it is hard, and I have been lucky. We've had great staff over the years, but with the exception of Emma, no one stays forever. There's no doubt that the restaurant industry has an incredibly high turnover of staff, and so keeping the good people is very important, but then the recruitment process is very important as well. And obviously there are certain things we look for with new staff we're employing, but it's tough. There's no doubt the labour market's been challenging the last few years. I hate to bring up the old Brexit word, but
I did say you could swear, so it's fine.
So I remember this clearly. The day before Brexit, or the day of Brexit, we were about 50-50 European nationals or British people working in the burger joint, and now I think it's about 5% European people, and
wow.
With that has obviously created challenges for us. I think the main issue is obviously there were some who left because they're like, oh, we don't feel welcome here, etc. But the basic thing is the economics is that most of these people earning money in pounds were still translating it into euros. So obviously it was 130, 140 euros to the pound before. So them getting paid well, say they were getting paid £8 an hour in 2016, they were looking at that and thinking €11 an hour. But then when it went down to what 110 or something, then suddenly it's €8.80 an hour.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're thinking, hold on a second, why am I away from my family, away from my friends, and I'm earning not enough money to to go back and have built something for myself. So it's been tough the last few years, especially chefs as well. I think there's definitely a recruitment issue with chefs, and I know that from speaking to contemporaries in the industry, and it has led to challenges. But the good thing is I don't particularly like going back into the kitchen anymore. But this is the one good thing with having the experience in all areas of the business. If I have to dig out the chef whites and get back in them myself. But
no, absolutely. I guess the key thing with that as well is when you've got an industry like the restaurant industry where there is a high turnover of staff, I suppose it makes it even more important, I guess, to have really good process and stuff like that, and make sure that when you're onboarding new staff that there's a clear kind of process and stuff to follow, right? I mean, I guess that's kind of a key thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think especially in our business, because there's a lot to learn when they start. As I touched on earlier, the whole ordering process is quite tough, and then we make everything from scratch, etc. So yeah, I think we do have kind of quite a good training regime, but it can be very frustrating because you put a lot of time and basically money into a new member of staff when they first join, and it can be very frustrating. They don't all last the course, and I think
No.
I think it can be frustrating when you feel like you've really put a lot of energy into training someone up, and then they disappear. But that's the industry we live in, unfortunately. So you just have to kind of accept it and not take it too personally, because we have a lot of staff who have worked for us for quite a long time, so it is a good place to work, and all our staff are treated very well. They get nice perks to the job. We've got a nice
free burgers.
Free burgers. That's certainly one thing that can lead to a few of them putting on a bit of weight soon after joining. But yeah, it's important that when I first started working in restaurants in 1999, I think it was, kitchens were a tough place to work. You were expected to pull 12-hour days. You didn't get a share of the tips. You're standing on your feet all day. It really was tough. Whereas I think it has changed a bit now, and I think now I think it's more expected that chefs get a slightly better deal than they did, which certainly is a good thing. But I think you have to be more realistic about what you can expect from these people now, and especially because there are many restaurants and there is a bit of a dearth of the chefs available. So I think people are very aware now that if they're not being treated well, or too much being expected of them from one job, they can go and look for another one and find it quite easily. So you do have to ensure that they are looked after, for sure.
No, absolutely. So I mean, we've kind of covered I guess a few factors, but what would you say was kind of the biggest factor or decision that you've made that's kind of contributed to the success? Is there kind of any sort of big moments, big decisions that when you look back, you think that was a good, or maybe a bad idea? I don't know, anything that kind of for you.
Well, I think I mean, without stating the obvious, I think obviously when choosing to open a burger restaurant ended up being a very good decision. I ended up being in a very good place doing it as and when I did. So
sure.
I can take some credit for seeing that this was a developing market and going for it. But
I think that's a great thing. Just actually, because a lot of people talk about starting businesses. You go down the pub with your friends, everyone's talking about starting a business. Not many people actually take action, and I think that's a huge one.
It was tough as well, because, as I said, I kind of started at the beginning of 2008, and by the middle of 2008, it felt like the whole world was falling apart. We were in the biggest financial crash in decades and decades.
Yeah.
And businesses closing left, right, and centre. And I did persevere. Which a lot. I remember a lot of friends thinking I was absolutely mad, and there were certainly times when I questioned myself. But obviously, I'm pleased I did it now. But yeah. So as I said, obviously I can give myself a pat on the back for choosing burgers, but in some ways it's fortunate. Some of these trendy foods last 5 minutes, and then and a year later people I remember 2006 or so, there was a smoothie place on every street in Bristol, and a couple of years later,
what happened to them? That was a big thing, wasn't it? Like a couple of years ago now, but it used to be massive. They used to have smoothie bars everywhere, and everyone's kind of just
yeah, exactly. I mean, the good thing is that the burger is a kind of institution, isn't it? And what I always thought was that, well, burgers have always been a thing. It's just they've been slightly low quality. Once people are used to having high quality burgers, they're probably not going to want to go back to having poor quality ones. So I guess I felt a bit more confident with that. But yeah, I guess in terms of other really big decisions, in terms of I can look back years later and say, wow, that was really game changing. I think I touched on it earlier how 3 years in we moved over onto a main road, bigger restaurant. That wasn't an easy decision in some ways, because the first 18 months, 2 years of the business, we were pretty much breaking even. It was tough. It was up and down. There was definitely a point after 2 years where I'm like, well, how much longer am I going to give this? Because, I had put a lot of time and effort into it, and, I wasn't making any money. And then, as I said, after 2 years, it just started changing. We started making money. We were filling the restaurant, and that that it would have been easy to just say, well, I'm doing so much better now. I'm making a moderate amount of money. I'd have bitten my arm off for this a year ago, and I should just reap the rewards. But instead, I really pushed to go that next level. And I had to reinvest every penny I'd made in the last year, plus borrow some more to open in this new restaurant. Wow. I was committing to double the rates, double the rents. There were huge risks involved in doing it. And I remember having a chat with a guy who owned a cafe across the road from me, who he'd actually, I wouldn't call him a mentor, but he'd been very helpful with giving me advice and recommendation. He was telling me absolutely don't do it, and so
oh, wow.
I listened to his advice and ignored it, and
great. I love it.
Yeah, just did what I thought was right, and it did end up being a good decision. Obviously, it literally doubled the business overnight. It was incredible. As I said, it was incredibly stressful. I was working 14-hour days every day for good 2 or 3 months, but it obviously was worth it. So, and then as soon as that settled, then I looked to open the second restaurant, and there was a relentless push to what else can we do. But having said that, I did open a third restaurant in Bristol in 2016 in a place called Fish Ponds, which is about 20 minutes out of the centre, and that didn't go so well, and I closed that just over a year ago. And that was, looking back, that was an expensive mistake. And I think there were several reasons for why that didn't go well. I think I probably didn't pick the right area, but I think also logistically, going from 1 to 2 restaurants went well and it was manageable, but going from 2 to 3 was actually like, this is the point where, wow, the whole structure of the business needs to change now, and I don't think I ever quite got my head around that. But again, I think I kind of maybe needed to try that to realize that I was probably happier and felt more comfortable running 2 businesses, and but also you won't run a business for 10 years and not make mistakes. It's impossible. And I think in a lot of ways, being able to like, closing the restaurant was tough. Like, firstly, it was tough to tell some people they'd been made unemployed. We tried to relocate as many staff as possible, but obviously some did. But also, it was a pride issue. I'd
Yeah,
spent so long, and the business had just gone up and up and up and up, and then that moment of, wow, we're going to have to close a restaurant, and knowing that the local paper would probably pick up on it, and trying to kind of make sure that people knew that actually it's not the business that's in trouble, it's just this particular site wasn't going very well, and etc. So it was tough, but I think it's important to make brave decisions in business, whether it's expanding or deciding to make that decision.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, and I think so many people decide not to do something just because of the voices around them. And actually, if you've got a burning desire in your heart and you do actually take action and go for it, maybe it won't work, but how else are you going to find out? I think a lot of people are very scared based on other people's opinions sometimes, and other people are just as prone to error as you.
No, absolutely.
And not everyone sees it in your way. So I think it's important. If you really feel something's going to work, don't let necessarily the opinions of others drown you out. I mean, it's important to listen to people, but I think sometimes we can miss opportunities if we're too delicate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, there's no doubt it's opening your own business is a risk, and a lot of people are very risk averse. So there are always going to be people who are going to think you're crazy or think it's a bad idea. But if you think you've got a good idea, and if you think you've got the commitment to see it through, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be successful.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, we've talked a little bit about decisions and stuff that contribute to success, but in terms of the challenges, I guess again we've kind of covered a few of those. But are there any kind of sort of core or big challenges that have seen maybe in setting up the burger joint? What kind of things do you think, perhaps, I guess, if you're giving advice to people listening?
Is this in terms of actually like the opening of the business, or once you're open?
I guess just general challenges in opening, growing, any core challenges that you kind of would like to advise our listeners on, or give any advice on?
Well, I think I mean the number of challenges over the years are just it's just so numerous.
I think that's the thing. This question is a funny one, because it's not really just one challenge.
No. Well, I think one of the things is kind of just expect the unexpected. There is some issue or problem every single day of the week, whether it's a leaking roof, or it's a broken traction, or the toilets have started leaking everywhere, or something. That there is always something, so you just have to not take that bit personally. I mean, from my side, I mean, the biggest advice I'd give anyone is to just work in businesses before. Don't there are people who just kind of work in watch a few Gordon Ramsay programs and think they're able to open a restaurant, but you'll never know the grittiness of what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis. And I think as I said, there are challenges, there are things that go wrong every day, but the fact that I'd worked in restaurants for getting on 10 years by the time I opened really meant that I was aware of that. I was going into opening the business with my eyes wide open, and knew what to expect. But yeah, in terms of the sort of core challenges, I think we've touched on staffing, and that probably really is the hardest thing. But I guess it's also knowing exactly what you want from your business, knowing exactly why it's going to be successful, and what the USP is, but also it's having that flexibility with your business, and you can have a great idea, like for example, when I first opened the burger joint, I thought it would be 50-50 restaurant and takeaway, and actually It became very clear 4 or 5 days into it that we were going to be more of a restaurant than a takeaway, and that was just having that flexibility to adapt the business and stuff, because you do have to plan meticulously, but in some ways you may as well throw away the business plan the day you open, in some ways, because it is going to it isn't going to be exactly how you envisage, and you need that flexibility, and I guess also you just need to constantly be looking to improve, because we talked about with sort of the social media and stuff, but it's every aspect of the business. Just because what you were doing was the best a year ago doesn't mean it's now going to be the best. You have to constantly be looking to innovate, to improve, whether it's your suppliers, whether it's, you know, what you've got on the menu, whether it's your drinks menu, you know, the small little touches. It's a constant evolution of what you're offering, basically.
Not resting on your laurels, really. I think that's the thing that comes out all the time when you speak to restaurant owners. Just, you know, not sitting on your laurels. You know, if you get success, you know, don't think that's the end.
No, no.
You know, then it gets harder because then you've got a reputation, and there's just, I think it's so important to have. It's more of a mindset thing than anything else. You know, that mindset to always be tenacious in your approach to what you're doing. And
and the thing is, if you don't, you know, you will be the best, and then one day you'll realize that you're not, and you know, it can be hard to build that reputation back. You know, it's very hard to stay at the top for years and years and years, and you know, you don't do it. Even, you know, even you look whatever restaurant is that was around 10 years ago. Even if you look at what McDonald's offer today compared to 10 years ago, you know, it's completely different, and you know, people's taste change. I mean, we didn't even have a vegan burger on the menu until 3.5 years ago, and you know, the vegan and vegetarianism is by far and away the biggest growing part of the market, and you know, if we hadn't adapted to that, we would be really struggling now. So
great point.
So you have to constantly, that is a challenge, because, you know, there's the thing is, there's always going to be someone at, like, you know, I think, look back to how hungry I was to make the business a success when I opened 10 years ago, and you know, it was probably about 5-6 years ago. Oh well, I've made it now, etc., etc. But it was at that point where I started to encounter challenges, and I think, you know, that was really the kick up the backside. I needed to realize, well, actually, you know, you can never be complacent like that, because there'll always be someone else who is going to be like you were when you first opened, and is going to do everything they can to make a success of it. And I think customers have become much more aware now of and discerning, I guess, in terms of, you know, they are aware of what's good, and you know, if they feel like a business is kind of just floating along, I think they will uncover that quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that comes back to, you know, the way the stuff online works these days as well, and the transparency. You know, absolutely important.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to try and understand a little bit about habits as well, because that's something that really fascinates me. Is, you know, having good habits, both in your personal life but in your business as well. So, I mean, have you got any big habits, any habits you could share that kind of you feel have contributed to, you know, your restaurants or your own personal success? Anything you could share?
No, that's a good question. I think just a meticulous nature. I think the thing is, you know, once you start letting the small things slide in your business, you know, you know, they all add up very quickly. And, you know, even if it's just, you know, letting the kitchen get away with not doing the clean down properly, or someone not doing the ordering right, or this, I think it snowballs very, very quickly. So, you know, you have to have, you know, that ability to just ensure that standards are kept to incredibly high level the whole time, because if you don't, as I said, it will have that cumulative effect, and before you know it, you know, things are exactly really not how they should be. And you know, it is tough with a restaurant. I remember the restaurant I used to work at Oxford, when I told him I was going to open a restaurant, he was supportive, but he was also like, you know, it's hard. And he said something, you know, it might look easy, but it's not easy. And it's just a simple phrase, but it's true. From the outside, why is it hard to open a restaurant? You know, you just put a few chairs and tables in a building.
Yeah.
You build a kitchen and you serve some food. But actually, you know, there are so many areas, and you know, you're dealing with so many groups of people. You know, you've got your suppliers, you've got your staff, you've got your handymen, you've got your bin men, you've got your laundry people. You know, there are so many different people you're relying on to help provide your service, and there's so many people who can let you down, and you know, it is, you know, it's all encompassing in terms of, you know, the challenges that you have. But you know, if you start to you know, just if you don't have that meticulous nature, then unfortunately it's all going to get on top of you very quickly. And
it's like paying attention and being super organized, I guess, is really how you tackle that, right?
Yeah. And I think also, you know, in terms of habits, you have to, at least at first, accept it's pretty much going to become your life. Like, you know, there's your business is open all, well, ours is open every day. You know, there's someone there from 10 in the morning to 11 at night. And, you know, at any point, obviously I have managers, etc., but at any point I have to be available and willing to, you know, support them and help them. And
of course.
And if you're not prepared for it to take over your life like that, you're probably looking to open. You shouldn't be looking to open a restaurant, because it's just, you know.
So one habit's technically working every day.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, as I said, or you know, there are days where there's nothing that goes wrong, etc., but you just have to be willing to drop everything, because you know,
of course,
your business has to be the most important thing, and it's you know, it's a tough to sacrifice to make sometimes, but that's the way it is, unfortunately. You know, I remember there was another place who opened a burger restaurant, Bristol. It was the other side of Bristol. He was like the second one, and he did really well at first, and it was going well. And then I started noticing he was getting bad reviews and stuff like that. And I remember I saw him, we got on okay, and I talked to him. You know, he said, "I'm finding it hard, blah blah." And then when I started talking to him more, he's like, "Oh yeah, I won't work weekends anymore." And it was just like, well, I mean, that's, you know, weekend is your busiest time at a restaurant. You know, you can't just make these decisions. You know, you're destined to failure if you do that. And so yeah, I think that habit is really just, you know, being aware that, you know, your business, at least for the first few years, has to be your life. That's the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, laziness costs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, don't go into only a restaurant if you know you think you're going to have an easy life, because you're not. You know, it's tough, and you know, it might look glamorous sometimes, but it's not glamorous. You know, when I've had my arm down a blocked toilet, or you know, had to you know, sort out the rubbish because the chef the night before hadn't put the bins in the bin, and then a fox has come, and you know, there's food waste all over the backyard or something. You know, there's so many, you know, things that are not glamorous at all about it. So yeah, just go into it knowing exactly what you're going to expect, basically.
And if you could give sort of one key parting piece of advice to anyone that's considering either opening a restaurant or just entering the sort of food industry, food business, what would you say it would be?
I think I've touched on it earlier, but I would say, you know, again, it's get as much experience working in the restaurant industry as you can, because I have no doubt that if I hadn't spent as long as I had working in the restaurant industry before I opened, I would not have made a success of the burger joint. And actually, that last year that I spent working front of house, I was quite lucky, because I started as a barman, then I got to do some waiting work, and then actually towards the end I became a manager. And because of that, I kind of, as a chef, you know, stuck in your kitchen, you kind of feel like, oh, they're only coming because of the food that I'm cooking, but it's not. You know, it's about 50% food. There are so many other little bits. You know, it's the seating, it's the ambience, the lighting, it's the music you play, it's the touches. You know, little attention to details, like when we give bottles of beer, we give a frozen glass and things like that. And it's so many things that people go for. You know,
and it's kind of all those things coming together.
Yeah,
as one, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And if I hadn't spent that year working front of house, I wouldn't have realised that. And the thing is, as well, it does mean, you know, if anything does go wrong, or I do get let down, or this, I can go in and fill any position. You know, you're in a very precarious position if, you know, you are reliant on other people to totally do the job of running your business, because then, you know, then if you can't fill in, then, you know, you become very reliant on these people, and you know, you're potentially in trouble. So I think that's probably for me the most important thing. But I guess also, you know, if you are serious and you've done that and you're like, I still want to open a business, it's just ensuring that you have an exact idea of what you want. You cannot leave anything to chance. You know, you have to, you know, for example, when you're planning your menu, you have to perfect your ingredients, you know, your processes and your ingredients. You have to think through how everything's going to work. Like one thing for me, you know, one thing I didn't think through, and I was very lucky about really, is that obviously we had this build your own burger method, but I hadn't really thought how. I had thought through, but I hadn't thought through very well how people were going to order their food once they decided what burger they wanted. So I kind of had it. My plan was basically that I was going to put a like waiter pad on everyone's table. And then like if it was a table of 4, each person would write what they want on their burger. And then one person would come up and order it. And it became very clear after about 10 minutes that this was an awful plan. And, because people were dithering and then, oh, what did you want? And this and that. It was just a nightmare. Like, and there was this point on day one where I'm like, this whole concept is not going to work because, it's just a disaster. And then I was very lucky on the second day, a customer suggested to us, she said, oh, why don't you put all your ingredients on a piece of paper and then have a little tick box next to each option, and then people can just tick what they want on their burgers. And I literally just gave her a hug because it was just like, that light bulb moment in my head, just like, wow, that's going to work perfectly, because then you don't have to deal with any of the sort of dithering of the customer. They give you the tick pads when you're ready, and then all you have to do is put it in the till. And that was day 2. She suggested that. I remember I got my graphic designer to print something up there, to design something the next day, and then got them printed the day after, and we haven't looked back. That's still how we order.
Listen to your customers.
Oh yeah. Listen, well, yeah, I mean, for sure. You will get feedback over the years that you should listen to. As I said, it's important to, as I keep saying, you've got to be flexible. You've got to have your very, very sure idea of how you're going to do everything, and don't leave anything to chance. But at the same time, if something isn't working, or if someone recommends something different or better, swallow your pride and make the changes, because however much you think about it, there will be things that aren't working or aren't popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to do what your customers want, really, at the end of the day. Otherwise you're not going to have the business.
Well, of course, no, absolutely. So we're coming towards the end of the interview now, but there's one question that we've actually kind of skipped over. So probably a hard question to ask, but I think maybe I'm going to change it slightly, because usually we'd ask what the favourite menu item is, of course.
Okay.
But with the style of your menu, that's probably a bit hard to work out. But I wonder, what is there like a popular style that people seem to, or combination that people seem to often go for that you see, or anything that's surprising as well? I'd be interested.
Well, I mean, I'm constantly surprised. I am constantly surprised by the combinations some people put together. When someone orders peanut butter and tzatziki as the 2 sauces in their burger, the thought of yogurt and peanut butter together. Yeah, but I mean, the problem is if you put the choice into the customer's hands, they are going to come up with some wacky combinations. But and as well, because there's no limit to how much they can order, really. So we do get some customers who order three patties, and then they'll get 6 toppings on top, and they'll get 2 sides and stuff like that. So it does encourage,
something I'd do, to be honest. But
it does encourage gluttony sometimes, for sure. But do you know what? Despite all the variety of choices, from wild boar to ostrich, every topping you can imagine, from pulled pork, chili con carne, jackfruit, guacamole, etc., the most popular burger on the menu is a beef burger with cheddar, bacon, barbecue sauce, and mayo and French fries. So you
can't get much more classic.
That's the thing. Despite all the choices available, that is the most popular one. So, but that's kind of why it works, because there are people who just want that classic burger, and they can have that classic burger. Absolutely. No one's going to judge them. But at the same time, the person next to them, if they want a venison burger with, brie cheese and onion rings on top, and mushrooms, with cranberry sauce and basil mayo or something like that, which are all things we have on the menu, that's absolutely fine. So, but yeah, I think, despite all the options, it is kind of the classic, which is still always going to be the most popular. But one thing's amazing as well, actually, is that for all our regular customers we've got, they kind of will try different combinations when they start, but most of them within 4 or 5 trips will settle on one burger combination, and we'll just always have that. So I think it is just human nature, isn't it, to kind of go with what you like and what you know best. And
once you find that thing, it's hard to part from it, because there's been a few kind of build your own menus that I've sort of been to restaurants and takeaways, things like that in the past, and I always end up after 2 or 3 goes, I'm like, right, this is my menu now. This is
exactly.
what I always order.
You know what? I'm terrible. Like, there's 2 different burger combos I have. I have been meaning to have peanut butter in my burger for about 4 years, and because apparently it's amazing. I know
I've heard it's a thing. I haven't tried it yet, but maybe I will do soon.
Well, that's the thing. For 4 years, I've been saying to myself, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it," and I still never got around to doing it. So I'm as bad as everyone else. But yeah, no, it is very popular, peanut butter. So I should try it, and so should
I kind of like the chicken satay. I'm kind of thinking along those lines, something like that. I'm thinking it could be pretty good.
So I was thinking the same. I thought if I was going to do it, I thought I'd do like a chicken burger with chili sauce and peanut butter and pulled pork or something like that. Might work, but as I said, I'm just too stuck on what I know best. So
we do like our things, don't we? So finally, then, tell us, is there anything coming up for your brand? What's next? What can we look out for? Any news?
So there's no kind of expansion plans restaurant wise. As I touched on, we did open a 3rd restaurant, and fingers were burnt a little bit in terms of the experience doing that. As I said, I'm very honest to say that I can't just blame it on being a bad area. I can look at my own personal failings and think probably I didn't prepare for opening a 3rd one as much, and I'm much happier having 2, but at the same time, we are expanding the sort of external catering side of the business. So we do quite a few festivals, we do weddings, we do events and parties and stuff like that. So that's a kind of side to the business we have increased, and we're looking to continue to increase. In terms of opening up a restaurant, it's certainly something at some point I would like to give another go, but I think it's not a secret that it's a tough time for restaurants at the moment. We've actually had a really good year this year, which is good, and I think there has, although the chains are struggling, I think people have kind of sided with the independents now in terms of the restaurants.
Absolutely, and I was having this conversation with another guest just a few days ago when we recorded one of the other episodes, and saying the same thing. I think that is the way the consumers are going now. Is they're going?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you get so much better value for money. Because when you go to these chains, you're paying for the marketing department, you're paying for an HR department, you're paying for the fat cat directors, etc., which is not something independents have. But it has been a good year for us. But I think there's still an uncertain future. We keep thinking we're going to find out more in a couple of days, and then it goes on to another couple of days, and then this and that. But I think I would certainly like to see how things settle down in the next 6 months, year, before we look to open another one. Because these are in some ways uncertain times we live in. I'm not hugely worried, because people will always want to go out to eat, no matter what financial situation is.
And this is coming from the guy that started his business during.
Well, with that came opportunities, because I got a restaurant where I didn't have to pay a premium. I got managed to negotiate a discount here and a discount there. But so it could be that when things are really down, if we do have a negative exit from the European Union, and businesses do fail and stuff, without sounding like a vulture, that might.
You're ready.
Exactly. It might be the opportunity to look at doing something, but at this very moment in time, I feel like it would be a bit risky. So we're really concentrating on the external catering at the moment. And that's the side that's going really well. So
awesome. Okay, well, that's the end of the interview. So that was really insightful. Thank you, Dan, so much for your time, your honesty, and opening up about so many things about the internal way you work and everything. It's been really, really insightful, and no doubt the listeners have had a great time too. It's awesome talking to you, and just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's been great to chat. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks. Thanks for listening to Bite Britain.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bite Britain, and also subscribe to us and watch the video version of this interview on YouTube so you can get updates on future releases and, more importantly, exclusive opportunities to win prizes from our awesome guests.